In 2010, Republicans took over the North Carolina legislature for the first time since the 19th century. And then 2 years later, in 2012, they got the trifecta: Republican State House, Republican State Senate, and they hoped Republican governor. But the Republican candidate for governor in North Carolina, Pat McCrory, he wanted to assure people in that fairly purple state that even if they elected him, even if they gave the whole state government to the Republican Party, the state, wouldn't go off a cliff and become like completely 700 Club Republican crazy, right? Pat McCrory wanted to be seen as a businessman, as a pragmatic guy, as a former mayor of the state's largest city. He specifically wanted everybody to know in North Carolina that he wasn't one of these fire-breathing Republicans on right-wing social issues. He didn't care about that stuff. He said specifically on abortion that he would refuse to sign anything as governor that would restrict abortion in that state. If he got elected, he would refuse to sign any new abortion restrictions.
If you're elected governor, what further restrictions on abortion would you agree to sign? I'll start with you, Mr. McCrory.
None.
All right. Can't really do a follow-up for that one.
He didn't say 9. He said none. I would agree to sign no further restrictions on abortion. Next question. Well, guess what happens next? He gets the governorship, and 6 months after he gets sworn in, Governor Pat McCrory signs a new bill restricting access to abortion in North Carolina. Ta-da! Although after signing that one, he did bring a plate of cookies to pro-choice activists who were protesting outside his governor's mansion at the time. So that made it all better. Cookies always do. Well, now, again today, Governor Pat McCrory is set to sign another anti-abortion bill in North Carolina. This latest one imposes a mandatory 72-hour waiting period on women who want to get an abortion in the state. There's no medical reason for that at all. It's one of the longest waiting periods in the country. The new bill also forces abortion providers to hand over to the state government detailed records of the abortions that they do, including, literally, your ultrasounds. They have to be sent to Pat McCrory now, to the state government. Your doctor has to hand over those records of your abortion because, what, there's somebody in North Carolina state government reading these medical scans for some governmental purpose. But they go in the file. We're keeping them. Small government. So Pat McCrory, Mr. I will sign no new restrictions on abortion, is about to sign a second round of new restrictions on abortion. That is happening tonight. But also in North Carolina tonight, we are still waiting on something that was too creepy even for Pat McCrory. North Carolina Republicans are trying to pass a bill over Governor McCrory's veto, which would let public officials refuse to marry couples in that state on the basis of their own personal religious objections. So if the county magistrate objects to your marriage on religious grounds of any kind, then too bad for you. That magistrate doesn't have to give you a license. It's supposed to be an anti-gay bill, but it's actually broad enough in its language that it would also let local officials block marriages between people of different religions or divorced people or even interracial marriages. Anything some local official said was contrary to his or her religious beliefs, they could use as the basis to say no to your request for a marriage license. So Governor McCrory vetoed this thing. Republicans in the Senate already overrode that veto. Republicans in the House are apparently now waiting for some of their absent members to return to the state capitol so they too can take a vote to override the veto and pass this law that would put North Carolina back in the business of letting local officials block interracial marriages. One of the Republicans they've been waiting on for this vote is apparently Representative Craig Horne. And he's been away in London, specifically because he was attending a convention of Winston Churchill enthusiasts. He's now come back from his Churchill conference, and this is how, as he's talking to the local press, this is how he's been describing his principled Churchillian stand on the North Carolina marriage law that they've been waiting on him to vote for. He says this, quote, "As I try to do all the time, I wait until the very last minute to make my final decision." Winston Churchill would be proud. And North Carolina, your fate is in his hands. The House did not take up the veto today, even though they'd had it on the docket today. They've now instead moved it to the calendar for Monday. It sits there under the category of unfinished business. We'll keep you posted on this one.